put up a general cleaning video for the PS4 Slim. This video here is going to replace it. I'm going to walk you through a full, proper clean out of the PS4 for the system. Okay, so obviously we're going to start by removing the warranty seal. This particular box has roaches, so there is no warranty through Sony, and we're going to be using a couple more tools than what I stuck up here. I will walk you through them as we go. This is just basically a scratch-all, nice sharp pointy tool to get in underneath the warranty seal and pull it off. It's kind of hard to do this with one hand, but just for purposes, some people go, oh, I can't find the screw, so I figured I'd show me pulling the warranty seal off. Trust me, if you can't find the screw in the back, you don't need to be doing this. Actually, I don't recommend any of you doing this unless you are very mechanically inclined. This screw in the back is a T8 Security Torx. A T9 will likely work in it, but T8 works perfectly fine. They're decently cheap star wrench with a little hole in the end. You can buy them on eBay for a couple bucks, or you can buy a pocket set at say any automotive store for about $8, and you get a whole bunch of different sizes. Okay, see that little sucker moving there? I didn't notice it right away. Look, there he goes. Kill, kill, kill. Don't, never let him get away. Okay, so need to clean this out and start over. Okay, so I took it outside, opened it up, basically blew it out, put it all back together. Now I'm going to walk you through how to do the whole thing. Okay, we're going to start with a T8 Security Torx driver. It has to be Security Torx, not just a standard Torx. The Security Torx has a hole in the end of the driver. Okay, always keep track of your screws. Make certain you put all the screws back. Okay, the hard drive cover comes off very simple. All you got to do is just give it a slight push and it will pop free and come right off. Okay. For those of you who do not have roaches, I'll tell you where in this video you can pretty much stop. No need to remove the hard drive screw. Just put your fingers under the corners and lift up. The hard drive side usually pops right up, but if it don't, you'll do the same thing as you do on the other side nearest the power port. That one's usually a little harder. I'm using a spudger, but any flat metal sturdy object will work. Just slide it up between the case and the lid and give it a little tweak and it'll pop right up. Now lift up a little bit and then slide toward the back of the box and then lift up. Alright. Now we have the top exposed. At this point, you should take it out, use a can of air, blow out all the dust that you find on the top, and then start with the bottom. But before you do, you need to remove two screws. One right here next to the screw coming from the power supply that actually screws into the power supply. And I wasn't 100% certain, but I think it does this screw here also. It doesn't really matter if it doesn't. For our purposes, we're going to remove it anyway. Okay, so we're going to take, and at this point you would take it out, blow it out, do it outside, you got roaches, you probably have already taken it outside and got rid of everything you could find on the top side. But put the bottom back on. That'll help protect your ribbon cables and everything else while you're working from the top. The top lid comes right off. You just lift up on the front two corners and then pull it straight up. For best cleaning, you really do need to remove the power supply. This particular box is in for roaches, so we're going to do some roach short protection on the power supply, which I'm not going to show in this video. Be very careful of this antenna here. It is so easy to damage. That antenna is your Wi-Fi for your syncing of your controllers and internet. So, actually, I think the internet Wi-Fi is the one off to the left there, and then the other is the syncing of the controllers. Anyway, you're going to remove two screws in the middle part of the T8. I'm just using a pair of tweezers to make it easier to grab them. First one's going to be about a ½ an inch. That's the one closest to the antenna on the left side there. And the other side, there's no antenna. That one is about an inch, maybe 1.25 inches long. So don't mix up the lengths and put them in the wrong spots. You'll damage something. Okay, so the short one goes closest to the antenna on the left side, and the long one will go on the other side where there is no antenna. I'll move around, let you see it. Okay, nothing. We'll go in there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take these and set them off to the side over here. And we're going to remove the little metal shielding. Metal shielding, I've seen people take them out and leave them out. It's not the worst thing in the world. However, it's designed as a grounding point from one side to the other, so it should be put back. Alright, so at this point we're going to use a small Phillips screwdriver. Phillips is actually a name brand. The proper term is cross top or cross head screwdriver. But Phillips has been around for so long, the majority of people call a cross head screwdriver a Phillips. Alright, so we removed 4 screws. Now we're going to remove the screw to the antenna. The antenna is very important that you do it correctly. This is where most people are going to damage their system. You're going to slide this back very carefully, and then you're going to get your finger and hold on to the wire itself. Okay, see the wire? That's your antenna, so you need to hold on to that so you don't pull it away from your antenna. You need to very carefully swirl it around that little loop. And if you notice, there's a little notch in the back of the case. Put that wire in and it'll hold it out of the way. Just like that. Alright? That's exactly what you need to do. Okay, see how it's notched in there? Okay, so now that we got that, we can actually remove the power supply. This is where your spudger will also come in handy. Now these power supplies in these things are so flimsy. Be very gentle with them and take them out. Now expect you doing this to take twice as long as this video takes. This video is about 25 minutes long. You should expect you're doing this to take at least a good hour, hour and a half. If you can't handle that, don't do it. Okay, so when you pull this up, be very careful and flip it over. There's a plug in the center. Oh, got a bug. You see the two metal things sticking up in the center? I know you're focused on that bug. You see the two metal things poking up in the center? That's the plug that goes directly into the power supply. And then you got the, here's your plug. That's the one that plugs into the power supply. And then you got your cabling need to unplug the cabling. Just kind of pinch, wiggle, and pull. That'll come right out. So when you're pulling that up, you need to be real careful. Now, we're going to take this apart and put in some roach prevention. There's a single screw on it and it'll come apart. I'll be making a video on that at a later date for the roach prevention. I have one set up for the 1115A and 1001A systems. Alright, so at this point with the power supply out, you have access to the back side of the heatsink. The face is closest to the fan. The face is the part that you need to get the dust off of. You will likely see no dust buildup on the face. Here's your antenna wires. You don't need to unplug them, and you don't need to pull the antenna off. Alright, so if you got an air compressor, you can blow it back and forth out of the fan, but for best cleaning purposes, you can remove this upper metal shield. It's very important that you take these screws out and place them in order on the table. Some are different lengths. Some are very short. Some are most of them are about the same length, but there are a couple of very short ones. And the last thing you want to do is put the wrong screw in the wrong hole. If you do that, the screw will go too deep, short out against a component or something. Don't think there's any real major components in here, but you can easily break or strip the plastic that it's going into. So it's best to put every screw back in the same hole that it came out of. You see how I'm arranging the screws on the table in order I remove them and in general location. This will help speed up putting it back together and ensure that you get it put back in the right location. Okay, almost there. We got one more long screw, which is, these are all Phillips head. This one is a security Torx and a very long screw. Put that there. Alright, now this upper lid will come right out. It's not in there very good, hard at all, and it will expose the bottom side of the disk drive, the fan, and the heatsink. Now look real close right here. See that arrow? Notice the color change of the metal. This box was running very hot due to dust buildup on the face side of the heatsink. And again, remember, I blew this out just prior to showing this video, and even with blowing it out, you'll see that there was a few survivors, and once I removed this upper shield, I found a couple more dead ones in the fan itself. Okay, so here's the face side of the heatsink. It's the side closest to the fan. This is where the dust will build up the most. Now this heatsink here is actually smaller than the first gen Xbox 360 CPU. So it will build up dust a lot faster. You're going to need to clean these things out a little bit more regularly. I would recommend starting out every 30 days for a minimum of once every 4 months. Some of you might have to do it weekly. It really depends on the amount of dust in your home. I would recommend starting out at least a minimum of every 30 days, and then you can extend or reduce the time in cleaning. Do not touch the disk drive. I'm telling you guys, unless you're familiar with how these disk drives work, I don't care what video you're watching, if it says if your game system's not reading disks, do this or do that, I guarantee you, with all likelihood, you're going to waste your money and or turn your game system into a permanent download only game system. Because for any one symptom, no matter how accurately it describes your problem, it could literally be 100 different reasons as to why it's doing that, and some of them reasons would have nothing to do with that disk drive. Now, this metal plate, once you get it all cleaned out in there, there's a little guide on the left side, and it will help you line it up nice and straight, and then you're going to want to put all your screws back in order. Okay, so you notice how I take the screwdriver and I'll go like as if I'm removing it. In other words, I'm turning it to the left first and then the right. That is to line up the threads. You're screwing these into plastic, so you don't want to just screw them straight in. You want to hit reverse, like as if you're taking it out until you feel a little click, and then go forward, and it will go in nice and gentle and easy. If it's going in really hard, you're cross-threading it, and with all likelihood you're going to break the little plastic retainer. So always turn it to the left a little bit until you feel it click, and then turn it to the right, and it'll go in just sweet and easy. Don't try and torque these things down. This is not a car. Do it gentle, just snug. There's no reason whatsoever to be trying to tighten these things super uber tight. Turn it to the left a little bit and then to the right. Snug it down. That's all. Once you get all the screws back in, your job is done, and you can move forward on replacing the power supply back into the system after you take it out and blow it out with either a can air or an air compressor. No, a vacuum cleaner is not going to work. Okay, so that's back on. As you can see, all the screws are back in their exact locations, exactly where we took them out. The system is now able to breathe and properly cool itself. Okay, we got no leftover screws. All the screws are in place. I'll put up a couple of notes for you. Okay, so to reinstall the power supply, you're going to take and just plug that back in. Just like that. It'll plug right in real easy. And you see the plug there. You're going to just kind of tilt it over, make sure that lands in it. And then very carefully manipulate it into place. And then lightly press down. It should go right into place with a little bit of pressure to get it to settle. Okay, now we need to put the antenna back on. We're going to grab a hold of the wire and the metal so we don't rip it off, and we're just going to pull it up and pull it around on that little squirrel, and then as we lay that back down, it'll slide down into that hole, and then the clip slides back on. That little clip actually holds the power supply in place as well as all the other screws. So make sure it's on right. Just pay attention to how you took it off. Turn your screwdriver just a little bit to the left. Oop, line up the screws. There you go. Get that in the hole. Turn it a little bit to the left till you feel it click a little bit, and then turn it to the right and snug it. That's it. Simple, easy. Put in the 4 screws, 2 on each side. Remember, you're snugging them down. You're not tightening them down. That power supply is not going to fall out if you don't super tighten them. You don't want to strip these things. You want them just to go in, snug, and then stop. Okay, there we go. Now you remember that long metal piece? We're going to put that back. Even though it's not really all that necessary. It does create a grounding point from one side to the other, as well as help cool the system a little bit through the grounding. It'll help pull heat away from the motherboard of the power supply, believe it or not. It'll also insulate the power supply if it did get really hot from melting the top side of your case. So we put the short one in the left and we put the long one in the right. Turn it a little bit, go the other way, tighten it down, snug it up. Now these don't have to be uber tight either, even though they're grounding points. It'll do it. Don't worry about it. Okay, now we're going to put the top back on and it will just snap right into place. Once we get that top back on, we'll flip it over and we're going to take the bottom back off. And we use our little spudger to pop the other side. Sometimes you got to use it on both sides, but usually, sorry about the autofocus, usually all you need to do is lift up on that one side and it'll pop free, and this side you just slide it in there, lift up, and it'll pop that free. Lift it up a little bit, slide it back, and we're going to put back the two screws that we took out. See, I turned it to the left and then to the right. It lined up, just went right in snug. The next screw, a little bit to the left. You hear that click? There you go. It's in, and we're done. We can put the top back on, or I should say the bottom back on. Now, see that? That's for the drive. You'll want to push that in as you lower down the case, but if you have a little bit of trouble like I just did, sometimes these things don't want to line up just right, and it takes a little bit of manipulating. Don't get frustrated, take your time. With me here, I accidentally pushed it down before I realized I did not push in that little hard drive tab, so I just took my screwdriver and lifted that up out of the way. Didn't hurt it any, it's good. And then we're going to install the lower housing screw. You can leave that one off if you plan on cleaning regularly. That bottom locks on rather well. It's not going to fall off unless you drop the whole system. But you know what? It's there. Use it. Just put it in, snug it up. It's good. Okay, now the hard drive cover, you see the little clips. This will not go on backwards. See, that side's square, so you need to make sure the angled end is with the angled end. You'll slide this right up on there. Let's give you a little better view. See how that looks? It goes right on, and then we'll just slide to the right, and then just kind of put a little bit of pressure down there. That'll click right into place. And you'll see it's nice and smooth, just like it was before you took it out. Okay, that is a proper clean out of a PS4. Now here's the manual eject button. Do not manually eject anything if you got something stuck in there. The only time you should use the manual eject is if maybe you lost power and you need to eject a red box disk so you can get it back. But if the disk is jammed inside, then you need to actually open the system in order to get that disk out. Because if you try to force it with the manual eject, you will break gears and you will have a more expensive repair than if you just had somebody open it up and properly remove it. Okay, so that's a Sharpie that I used. I used the T8 security Torx driver, a small Phillips screwdriver, and I used a pair of tweezers and a flat spudger. Okay, flat spudger and the tweezers you can probably get away from not using. But anyway, stay safe, happy gaming everybody.